Hey guys, Jamiy here, and today, obviously, we are going to be going over the Loomian Legacy type chart. Obviously, if you played Pokemon Brick Bronze or just any Pokemon game, obviously you know there is a specific type chart that pretty much just lets you know what's super effective against what resists what's immune to what, and whatever. Pretty much, obviously, it is, because this game is based on Pokemon, also there's going to be a fairly similar type chart. Also, quite a few of the types have changed. Also, as well, there are going to be some changes to this type chart, which I think some of you guys might find surprising, but also we have certain things like, for example, Fairy from Pokemon also in this game is light type, which also is hugely different. Also, as well, like the next other big change is the fact that Ground and Rock have been combined into one Earth type in Loomian Legacy. But anyway, as you can see on screen, which also has been on the entire time I've been talking, you can see that this is actually the new type chart for the game. Obviously, the attacking or the offensive typings is on the column going down, and obviously the defending types are the ones obviously going across the top of the screenshot. So pretty much, obviously, for example, if you use fire, also it's gonna be super effective against plants. So you just gotta follow it like that. So also the red marks where it says is 0.5 means also that type resists it. If it's a ×2, that means that type is weak to that other type. If it's 0, it means that also it is immune, so that type is immune to the other type. So that's pretty much how to follow it, so there it is. Anyway, let's go into the video and I'll go in depth a little bit more on exactly what specific types are weak to other specific types. Okay, so jumping straight on into it then, obviously we'll start with the Typeless typing. I think that makes the most sense. Also, I'll quickly say, for example, since Typeless has no super effectives, I'll skip over those ones and I'll just skip on down to where it actually is resisted by something or weak to something or whatever. So I guess jumping straight on into it, Typeless moves are not very effective against metal, and Typeless types are weak against mind. That is it for Typeless. It doesn't resist anything, it isn't super effective against anything, it doesn't have no effects or anything like that at all. So anyway, on to the next type. Okay, so jumping on into the second typing, we'll go for fire. Fire moves are super effective against plants, ice, dark, and metal. Fire type moves are not very effective against fire itself, obviously, water, light, and ancients. These types are not very effective against fire. So for example, fire is not very effective against fire. We just went over that one. Plant is not very effective against fire. Ice, bug, and metal. And these types are super effective against fire. Water, earth, and air. Anyway, onto the water type. Okay, so onto the water type then. Water type moves are super effective against fire, earth, and electric. A very interesting one there. Water type moves are not very effective against water, plants, and ancients. These types are not very effective against water, which includes fire, water, ice, and metal. And these typings are super effective against water, plants, electric, and toxic, which is also another interesting one. Anyway, on to plants. Okay, so next up is plants. Plant moves are super effective against water and earth. Plants moves are not very effective against fire, plants, toxic, and ancients. These types are not very effective against plants, which are water, plants, earth, electric, and light. Also, for the final one, these types are super effective against the plant type, which include fire, ice, dark, bug, and toxic. Anyway, that is it for plants. Fairly interesting also how light also can force, plants can photosynthesis, so also That means light is not very effective, but also dark can also kill off certain specific plants. So obviously they gain the dark weakness, which is fairly cool. Interesting. Anyway, onto the earth type. Okay, so jumping straight onto Earthland, we have Earth moves are super effective against fire, electric, metal, and toxic. Earth moves are not very effective against plant and bug. Earth has no effect on air, giving air an immunity to earth. These types have no effect on earth types, which is electric, so grounds, or in this case earth, has an immunity to electric. These types are not very effective against earth types, which is only toxic. And finally, these types are super effective against earth types, which is water, plant, and ice. So there is that. So fairly standard for that one. But anyway, on to the next one, which is electric. Okay, so for the electric type plan, electric moves are super effective against water, metal, which is interesting, and air. Obviously, most metals can conduct electric, so that's probably why it has that weakness. Anyway, next up is electric moves are not very effective against plants, electric, and ancients. Fairly standard there. Electric moves have no effect against earth. Again, earth has an immunity to electric. Then next is these types are not very effective against electric types, which is itself electric, metal, and air. And electric are weak to water and earth. Anyway, that's it for electric. On to ice. Okay, so jumping straight into Iceland. Ice moves are super effective against plant, earth, bug, and air. Ice moves are not very effective against fire, water, ice itself, and brawler. These types are not very effective against ice types, which is ice itself and air. These types are super effective against the ice type, which is fire, metal, and brawler. Anyway, that's it for ice. Next is light. Okay, and so for light. Light moves are super effective against dark, spirit, which is the new ghost type, and ancient, being also the new dragon type. Light moves are not very effective against plants and mind. These types have no effect on light types, which it only consists of spirit. So that means light actually is immune to spirits, which is interesting. These types are not very effective against light types, which is fire, ancient, and light itself. And these types are super effective against light types, which consists of dark and metal. Anyway, next up is dark. Okay, so for dark moves are super effective against plants, light, and minds. Dark moves are not very effective against itself being dark, bug, and spirit, which also is interesting because in Pokemon it was actually the other way around. Dark was super effective against spirits. Anyway, next. These types are not very effective against dark, being dark itself, mind, and spirit. So it looks like they actually both ghost or spirit in this case and dark I guess both resist each other. And finally, these types are super effective against the dark type, which is fire, light, and bug. Anyway, next up is the bug type. Okay, and so for the bug type plan, bug moves are super effective against plants, dark, and minds. Bug moves are not very effective against fire, metal, air, and brawler. These types are not very effective against bug types, which is earth and dark. And finally, these types are super effective against bug types, which is ice, air, and brawler. Next up is metal. Okay, and so for metal then, metal moves are super effective against ice, light, and ancients. Metal moves are not very effective against fire, water, electric, and itself being metal. These types are not very effective against metal types, which is Typeless, the first time we've seen Typeless, bug, metal being itself, air, and ancient. So far I believe metal has the most resistances with 5. And also these types are super effective against metal types, which is fire, earth, and electric. Up next then is Air. Okay, and so then for Air then, Air moves are super effective against Fire, Bug, and Brawler. Air moves are not very effective against Electric, Ice, and Metal. These types have no effect on Air type, which is Earth. Obviously, Air has the Earth immunity, or is immune to Air. Air is immune to Earth, better way to put it. These types are not very effective against Air types, which is Bug and Brawler. And finally, these types are super effective against Air types, which is Electric and Ice. Anyway, next is Toxic. Okay, and so for the Toxic typing then, Toxic moves are super effective against Water and Plants. Toxic moves are not very effective against Earth and Toxic and Mines. These types are not very effective against the Toxic type, which is Plant itself being Toxic, and Brawler. And finally, these types are super effective against the Toxic type, which is Earth and Mines. Next up is Mind. Okay then, so Mind moves are super effective against Typeless, which is the first Typeless weakness, and the only Typeless weakness, Toxic, and Brawler. Mind moves are not very effective against Dark and Mind. Obviously in Pokemon, Dark had the Mind immunity, or the Psychic immunity. In this game it doesn't, it just resists it. Next up then is these types are not very effective against Mind types, which is Light and Mind itself. And finally, these types are super effective against Mind types, which is Dark, Bug, and Spirit. Next up is the Spirit type. Okay, and so for Spirit then, Spirit moves are super effective against Mind, Spirit, Brawler. Spirit moves are not very effective against Dark, Ancient, and actually that's it. I thought there was a third one, but there isn't. Next up is Spirit moves have no effect against Light. Also, Light having an immunity to Spirits. Also, these types have no effect on Spirit types. Brawler. Spirit type has an immunity to the Brawler type. Next up is these types are not very effective against Spirit types, which is Dark and Toxic. And finally, these types are super effective against Spirit types, which is Light, Spirit, and Ancient. Next up is Brawler. Okay, and so for the Brawler type, Brawler moves are super effective against Ice, Bug, and that's it. Brawler moves are not very effective against Air and Toxic. Brawler moves have no effect against Spirits. These types are not very effective against Brawler types, which consists of Ice and Bug. And these types are super effective against Brawler types, which are Air, Mind, and Spirits. Anyway, next up is the Ancient type. Okay, and so for our final type, the Ancient type, which also is the new Dragon type. Ancient moves are super effective against Spirit and Ancient being itself. Ancient moves are not very effective against Light and Metal. These types are not very effective against the Ancient type, which is Fire, Water, Plant, Electric, and Spirits. And finally, these types are super effective against Ancient types, which is Light, Ancient, and Metal. So it actually looks like that the two tankiest types, I guess, would consider to be Ancient and Steel, or Metal in this case, in this game. I think both of them have 5 resistances. I believe they both as well have 3 weaknesses, which is the case. But it looks like Metal is super effective against 3 types, whereas Ancient is only super effective against 2. But only 2 things resist Ancient, whereas 4 things resist Metal. So Metal and Ancient seem to be the best types from looking at this so far, in my opinion. So that's pretty cool. Also, I love Metal types from Pokemon. Also, my favorite Pokemon was Metagross. But I think these are pretty cool typings. Let me know in the comments down below if you've had any idea that it would be anywhere near close to this. Also, there is quite a few changes from the Pokemon type chart, but this is a new type chart for Loomian Legacy, so there is that. Also, I'll put things up on screen, but I'm going to leave it off there, and I'll see you guys next time.